Hey, gang, when you're listening to this, the end of the season is really close, and we know you like to get gifts for your players and your coaches and everyone and anything in between. So, why not give your players an end of season gift that they'll actually use all year long? The Hockey Wraparound Team Deal is here, and it's saving the day. Yes, that's a pun. Let's do it. What's included? 10 hockey wraparounds, 2 goalie wraparounds. You can mix and match however you want if you contact us, but it helps to protect the expensive hockey sticks when playing off the ice so your kids won't destroy their hockey sticks. It also allows your kids to train all year round, especially in the summer. Shots, puck handling, we make it for goalies too. It is the ultimate off-ice training experience. All of this for your whole team, $199. That's a $500 value. Again, $199 divided by however many kids you have. If you need more, we can add them on at a limited price as well. Act fast. It's only available for a limited time. Check it out at hockeywraparound.com right now. Get your team covered for the offseason. We got you covered here on Our Kids Play Hockey. Let's dive into the episode. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. It's Lee Elias with Mike and Blinelli today. Mike, I got a question to start this one off. If we were looking at it as a hockey team, as a band, right? The offenseman that dekes through everybody, that's your lead guitarist. It's sexy, it's fast, right? It makes you want to listen to this song. Your goaltender's probably the drummer, right? They keep the beat. If the drum beat's not on, everything's falling apart. Right? And you got your rhythm guitar, right? Your rhythm guitar is definitely, the support the wingers on the offense to make that nice pass to the lead guitarist to take away the solo that's going to make the song. But Mike, if you don't have a bass player, your song is going to fall apart as well. And the bass player in our band, Mike, I believe, is the defenseman. Would you agree with that metaphor?
Yeah, the metaphor is tough, but it's But I see where you're going, and I think I think any of the kids listening would appreciate the music analogy piece and tying it all in. But it's a good way to describe the fact that there's all these different components of a band, as in hockey, and we can't just rely on. You can't just listen to a drummer for 3 hours. I guess you could, but to really create great music, you have to have all those components.
You have to have it's got to be a symphony of teamwork.
Right.
Pun intended. If you listen to a song without bass, it's pretty boring, right? So today's episode is all going to be about the underappreciated defenseman. So what you can look to get out of this, obviously we're going to discuss the defensive positioning, not just for defensemen, but for everyone on the ice and how important that position is, how it's underappreciated, and how I think in modern times, Mike, we can help coaches, parents, and players have a better understanding of why that position is so important, that everyone understands the responsibilities of that position, even if you don't play it, right? Because I think the key term here, again, underappreciated defenseman. It is so true. We underappreciate bassists in a band. That's my point. We don't talk about the greatest bassist of all time, all right? Paul McCartney was a great bassist, but we don't talk about his bass playing. We talk about Lennon and him playing. That's for the older heads out there. All right, Beatles, look it up, kids. Anyway, underappreciated defenseman. Mike, let's start with this. You just can't create offense without defense. Why don't we begin there and how important that position is to the game?
Yeah, I think the ability, when you're watching a player and you're watching a defenseman and you're looking at trying to figure out, is this player a quality player for my team? Is somebody that's desirable to me? Is somebody that I can use to help me create more offense? That's honestly the player that can play just D. Again, there's a lot of the Makars out there, and everybody likes the Bobby Orr analogy of grabbing the puck off the face, off a face-off, weaving through a couple of players, creating that offense. But without solid defense, and I think a lot of coaches, most coaches, fall on the side of I'd rather be in a 2-1 game than a 10-9 game.
Yeah.
But again, 10-9 games are fun. Fans probably love them. But if you're a coach, that's the ability to have a solid defenseman, somebody that plays defense, and a team that plays defense allows you to be so much more creative offensively, because then it's more freewheeling. So if you think about how teams are structured, the ability to be in a structured defensive mode, you don't hear much about free play in the defensive zone. You certainly hear it in the offensive zone.
Yeah, it's true.
But in the defensive zone, it gets really just down to being a very core, solid, positional player.
Yeah, and I think traditionally, like, let's kind of break the myth. When we think of defensemen, it's, oh, they stop the play in front of our own net. And that is such a small part of the broad aspects of being a defenseman. Again, just to separate, we'll let you know when we're talking about team defense versus a defenseman. We're focused on the defensive position right now, but that position is so much more than that in today's game, especially at the higher levels, right? And you said it perfectly. Offense starts from the D. All right. Now, going back to what you said about a 10-9 game versus, a 2-1 game, when we really break down hockey, when you look at it, look, a great goaltender is obviously going to be a separator of two teams. If one team has a great goalie and the other team doesn't, and they're pretty comparable, we know who wins that game. All right. When you come out, it's not offense next, it's defense, right? Because if you have great defense, that other team's not going to get as many shots. That other team's not going to get as many chances, right? And your team will get more chances. And I think that we've kind of lost sight of that a little bit. I think we look at, well, who's the flash forward that can get down the ice and score 10 goals? I actually want my best skaters on D. All right. Now, another thing you brought up is also this mentality. And I preach to my players all the time that, yes, I understand. Look, I was an offenseman. All right. I understand the will and the love of scoring and creating offense. I'm not negating that. But to be a great defensive player, you have got to have the same joy and elation in good defensive play, stopping the other team from scoring, as you do when you score. That's the mentality side. And the amount of kids, Mike, that I see that don't want to play defense because they haven't, I'll say, learned that mentality yet is kind of devastating. So especially on the younger kids, when I say, hey, I want you to play defense this game, I don't want to play D. Oh man, you're missing an opportunity. You want to learn that position.
Right. You want it to be boring. Like if you're a really good defenseman, you want a real boring defenseman. The same thing as a goalie, right? You just mentioned about the goaltending being that first line of defense.
Yeah.
When think about your own team now, right? You're in a game. You have a goalie that is a great goalie, but they are more Dominic Hasek than it's just a solid, like jumping and flying around and
we call
spinning.
That being out of position most of the time, but yes.
Right. So they're athletic. But the anxiety for everybody because the defense doesn't know where you're going. They don't like. I want a goalie that just eats pucks, gobbles them up, controls the play, knows when to let the puck go, knows when to redirect it, knows when to get a face off, knows when to put the puck in a place where a defenseman or a forward can get it.
Right.
Like that to me is a calming influence in a game, rather than maybe you have a great goalie, but it's just chaos.
Yeah.
And if you can avoid, then you go back to now the defenseman or the defensive player that's in that zone, the ability for that player to slow the game down, create space, create time, give us the opportunity to let our star forwards get the puck and move it. That's what solid defense is to me.
Yeah, and look, let's expand upon that, right? I think that kind of talking to the parents a little bit here. When you think about the excitement of the game, obviously the first step from a good defenseman is you're going to get the puck, right? Let's just say that you're going to find a way to get the puck from the other team and put your team in control. But I think the next step up, which is not that far away, is controlling the defensive zone, guiding offense from the other team to the outside, getting them to low percentage places on the ice. Right. We're going to talk about the house or kind of between the dots in front of the net in a bit, between the circles. But a good defenseman will guide a really good offenseman out of a good scoring position. And I'll tell you right now, speaking of goaltending, there's no goalie on the earth that doesn't want a shot from outside the dots in the corner versus coming right down the slot. So that's part of the chess match, if you will, of playing really good defense. And I'm going to say it again. It behooves all players, regardless of position, to understand that aspect of the game. If the other team can't get quality shots, they can't get quality goals. All right, I'm not saying squeakers don't happen. All right, but I'll tell you right now, I'd rather a team take 30 shots from outside the dots than 5 shots within the dots. That's right. That, and the stats support that, by the way. Right? We know that the low percentage shots are out there. Most goals take place right in front of the net. So a defenseman's brain and the ability to see, okay, I've got a right-handed forward coming in. I need to push them to the right side of the ice, which will keep them on their backhand and make sure they don't get into that position. And then working with another defenseman of take away the passing lane. We talk about a symphony before, man. That stuff is art to me. All right. You want to talk about diffusing a play. That stuff's really important, right? Again, we're talking about the defensive side of defense right now. When you flip it to offense, Look, most offensive plays, most of them start with a defenseman. Most of them start with a great first pass, as we used to say 20 years ago. Most of them start with the D just moving the puck up the ice. Most of them start with the defenseman reading the play and understanding to move it to the other side of the ice, maybe where there's not so much traffic, right? That's the conductor of the symphony in a lot of ways, if you will. I'll get off that metaphor halfway through the episode. Don't worry. All right, but my point is, great D, man. You really think the game. You make the offense happen, right, Mike? There's no O without D.
There's no O without D. And the game, think about the sport of hockey, right? It doesn't start at the offensive blue line.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's not. Remember, I think there was a rule at one point, or maybe there's a sport where, they put the puck at the blue line, everybody else has to go on the goal line, and that's like your penalty. Like, so you can start with the puck, but then everybody can chase you.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's not what happens in real hockey. So the play doesn't automatically just end up at the blue line, and then the offensive guy comes in and makes a move and gets a shot on net. All of that other ice, 75% of the other ice, has to come from the defensive zone. And the analogy, the old adage that good offense is created by great defense. There's a reason why we talk about that, because all 5 players being in the defensive zone, creating that time to get the puck, and then having the space and the opportunity to now dictate the offensive play is really what happens. I think going back to that defensive side, I mean, there's nothing more frustrating, right, than your defense does a great job of getting the puck below the red line. There's a shot, shot on net. He gets the rebound, and what does he do? He rims the puck up the boards, and where does it go to? The other defenseman, who then shoots it right back. And so to be able to get that puck and then create a step, to create a space, to create a lane, and the offensive players knowing that you're not going to just throw the puck away, that you're going to have a little patience to look for that player now to give them the opportunity to move up ice. That is how good offense happens. And it eliminates a lot of dump and chase hockey. It eliminates a lot of throw it away and go get it hockey. The more composure that can happen in the defensive zone and possession, the more composure can happen as we enter the zone at the offensive blue line.
Yeah, and look, as we usually do on the show, I'll break it down kind of 12 and down and 12 and up, right? With the kids younger than 12, it is so common for a D to get the puck and just throw it without thinking. And one of the things that we're really working on at that D, we'll say 10 years old right now, is, hey, patience, right? If someone's really right on you, I understand the need to throw the puck. As long as you don't throw it in front of our own net, we're fine. But most of the time, you have at least a couple seconds. And Mike, one of the things we've been doing on the team I'm working with now is we've actually told the wingers, I want you to stick length off the boards. Because A, it takes away the winger's on the boards kind of mentality. And B, it forces the D to look up to make that pass. Just so you know, for the wingers, if they do run up the boards, you have enough space to get back to the boards and get the puck. That's why I'm not worried. We also don't like it when the wingers are on the boards with the boards behind them. You've taken away all that space. So something as simple as the wingers coming off the boards. Another thing that I like to do, okay, and I've actually talked about this years ago on the show, is I will often have my wings and my D at practice every once in a while just switch positions so that they can each understand and comprehend the pressures of that position. So when the wings go and play D, they understand, I do have an extra time. I have to look up. This isn't as easy as I thought when there's pressure. And the D on the wing understand, like, wow, when this thing just comes firing around the boards, it's not as easy to catch that puck as I thought. So that's a little bit of a tactic. But I get my wingers off the boards. I have my D look up. I also encourage my D, Mike, and this is getting to the little bit of above 12 years old. If there's skating room in front of you, start skating the puck. All right? Depending on the situation, depending on what you're seeing in front of you, take the ice they're giving you, right? Now, I'm not saying skate into 4 people on the other team, but if they're backing out and they're playing a little conservative, start skating it up. Draw one of them to you, look up and make that great pass. That's something that's really changed in the game over the last 20 years. When we were kids, I think it was, D to the wing to the center, or center out. That was the very basics of it. But now it's completely different. And, it's not just Kel McCarr that has made that happen, right? This has been happening for a while with the mobile defenseman. But D, behind the net, we're talking about the patience, the understanding. This is why you're underappreciated. To make that first pass for offense is huge, right? And if you miss it, it's a turnover, right? So I think you're 100% right, Mike, about the D. The other thing I was going to say, again, going back to 12 and under, how important are D? If you can get a really good neutral zone regroup of to D across the ice and up, you're going to do really well, because most kids below 12 don't have a great forecheck, and they just kind of I don't want to say they all follow the puck, but they can get lost. They're not super focused. If you are in a forward check, I'm sorry, a regroup, and you go D, cross to the other D, and up to the other forward, you're going to get some offense doing that. And I see the great teams do that, right? It's hard to defend it that, but that's another one of those offensive plays starting with the D, right? The ability to work on that. It's so underappreciated.
Right, and I think that neutral zone is that quick transition that
Right.
creates pace, that creates possession. That quick transition in the game allows you. If the puck comes back to you at your blue line, and you can move it north, east to west, and then move it north and south, and then move it east to west. That transition and that flow and that ability to possess the puck allows the wingers and the forwards to then move into positions that are benefiting them ultimately.
Right.
What it does is open up lanes. To your point with the players, if I go D to D, and the player doesn't, and the forechecking players don't attack me, I have ice. Take the ice. If you could take the ice, it's funny. I was working with a couple of kids the other day, and they weren't passing the puck, and they, a lot of. And I hear everybody, you got to pass the puck. You got to pass the puck. And I have a rule for my kids. If you could go down and take the puck and score, never pass the puck.
Right,
Ever.
I agree.
Why would you?
Yeah.
Right. But none of us can do that. So just learn the fact that the puck moving helps you. If you want to be a great offensive defenseman, then create space and get ice, move the puck somewhere that you can now get back to open ice and open space. And I think that's where that transitional play, which is being more and more, again, when you look at the way USA Hockey has kind of put the rules in place right now, where it's automatic offsides. The thought process there is that it should create more mobile defensemen.
Yeah.
Right. It should create more transition. I think what happens is I never see that in the game. Honestly, I don't see it enough, and I just see a lot of offsides. So everybody complains that the game takes longer, and but then you have to teach. Like the whole idea is to teach that.
Yeah, coach.
You're the coach. You don't want the offside. Coach. So I think that's where, again, to your point, that ability for a defenseman to be such a great skater, because if they're going to pivot and turn and transition and go from edge to edge and east to west and spin off and create offense, you better be a good skater. Because if you fall and you trip and you bobble the puck, there ain't nothing else but the goalie. And that's where, and you're exposed. It's like, when you lose the puck in the corner as a winger and somebody out battles you and they pop out of the corner and they start going down ice, it's not that noticeable. But when you fall at the blue line and bobble the puck and somebody skates by you, everybody in the rink knows it. And I think that's where that ability to be able to pivot and turn and have the skating dynamics in the sport just becomes more and more important.
Yeah, and looking at the full breadth of positions here, when we work with goaltenders, what do? Edge work, positionally edge work. Your goalies probably have the greatest edges on the team, right? It's very rare that you'll see a goalie skate out and they can't skate, okay, in terms of just skating. Right. Defense, in my practices, we do a lot of edge work. We do a lot of ability of all directions, north, south, east, west, with our skating. Because you said it, if that D can't skate, first off, if the other team figures out somebody can't cut left, you have a problem. All right? So skating is super important. It's important for everybody, obviously. But I'm saying when you look at building a great defenseman, you want to make sure that they have the ability to move their feet, right? Stick handling always comes after that. Now, listen, we're talking about this too. You said it. I believe, Mike, feel free to disagree with me, at all the levels that I have worked at, right? The biggest separator between levels. It's not talent, okay? It's not even compete level, although that's pretty close, all right? It's transition. It's the ability to read the play and quickly transition from offense to defense and defense to offense. The higher the level, the faster that transition happens, all right? And just to make the joke, when you look at might hockey, the transition happens 5 seconds after the play has already gone on to offense. We'll just do this quick. You go all the way up to the NHL level. The transition takes place 5 seconds before the puck has gone from offense to defense. You're talking about a 10-second transition difference. And I think within those 10 seconds is your growth, is your evolution of a hockey player. And a defenseman has such an important role in that transition not just the speed, but the pace, right? To understand okay, we got to move it now quick the other way, or we got to slow it down and wait a minute. I think one of my favorite players of all time, Mike, that did this, and this guy was known for more his physicality, but I think Chris Pronger, who had played for the Whalers, the Flyers, the Blues, won a Stanley Cup with the Anaheim Ducks, right? Was briefly in Edmonton, lost the Stanley Cup there. He was so smart with the puck. His ability to read what was happening in front of him is the reason he's a Hall of Fame player. All right. He understood when to move it quick. He understood when to slow it down. There's even videos, a funny one you can watch, that a team was playing a 1-3-1 trap, and he just held the puck in his own zone. He refused to move it up. And they stood with it for a minute in the offensive zone when he was on the Flyers, right. The defensive zone. Like, this guy's reading the play, the psychological side of the game. Talk about underappreciation. I want you to think about this, all my listeners, again. The power of the D to stop the game is insane when you think about it. When I'm talking about Chris Pronger here. All right. He stopped the game from happening. So a defenseman's ability to transition the puck, again, offense to defense, defense to offense, and control the pace and understand what's happening, man, you can spring your team from that, right? If you just rush it and nobody's ready and you just rush the puck up the ice, it's probably going to be a turnover. But if you get it, you read your offense, you understand the speed. Do I go D to D? Do I read the play? Man, that can make a huge difference in a game. So the transition is the separator. I think pace is also a super underappreciated skill, Mike. Again, we're talking a second. 1 second to let your offense figure it out can be a huge difference. Or really the opposing team's offense. If they're out of position, moving it quick, reading that can change the game, completely change the game.
Right. I think even in today's game, where it's positionless hockey, like that, we're trying to go toward. Yeah. We're going towards the role that 5 players are playing. You still need to play defense. Like, I think when people think of positionless hockey, they only think of the offensive part of the game.
Yeah.
And they only think about, positionless hockey means the right winger and the left winger can go to center, and the center can go to right wing and left wing. And
that's not what it means at all. Yeah.
And then at the blue line, the offensive blue line, the way I think most coaches think about positionless hockey is from the blue line in. If my D don't have to be static at the blue line, they can shimmy down the boards, scissor off somebody. They could come down. You get a lot of goals you see in the NHL right now and in college hockey. The defensemen are scoring goals by being below the hash marks in the offensive zone.
Yeah.
But that's when you say positionless hockey, you have to understand that doesn't translate and transfer back into your defensive zone. Like if you watch a defenseman that doesn't understand, like in the defensive zone, right? You're a player, you're a defenseman in the defensive zone. If you just rush out against the high guy at the blue line and you miss him, and nobody is covering, we'll get back to the house in a little bit, but nobody's covering the most vulnerable areas of the ice, then positionless hockey doesn't work anymore.
No. So,
but that's where I'm saying, like, the underappreciated piece of the defensive play is that how important it is to gain possession, gain an understanding of how much pace you have, how much time you have, if that transition even has to happen. Sometimes if you see a line change, that transition has to happen quick, right up the ice.
100%.
If you're changing, if your team's changing, then and we see it more and more and more. When you watch the NHL and you watch overtime 3-on-3, you can really appreciate a defensive player slowing the pace down to nothing.
Yeah.
Because what are they doing? That goes outside their zone.
That's a great point.
They wait for their 2 wingers to change.
Yeah.
They don't rush up the ice without support. They wait for layers, and then they could take those layers into the offensive zone. But that is a skill. There's a lot of high hockey IQ going on there when you think about waiting and being patient and being fast but not being quick, right? Just all those little things that you look for as a coach in when you want your players to be, wow, am I elevating the pace? Am I slowing the pace down? And then how is that relating to my transition? That is so underappreciated by when you look for players that can create that atmosphere for you.
Yeah, that's the name of our next book, by the way, Fast Not Quick. I'll give you a great development strategy here, Mike, of positionless hockey and how that applies, because I think it's a great point. I think there is a little bit of misunderstanding with this. The key of positionless hockey is everyone knows everyone else's position. This is where I think people get lost, right? It's not a free-for-all in positionless hockey. It's everyone can play every position. It doesn't mean a center should be playing D, but it means that everyone understands it. So the way we're developing this on some of the teams I'm working on, Mike, is we'll take the defensive zone. We have been extremely clear. Follow me here. Left wing, right wing, center, both D. What is your area of the ice to patrol? Okay. This area, we've shaded this area out. As a right winger, this is your responsibility to patrol this area. But we also tell the team that as you evolve in the game, we don't necessarily want them switching wings or centers or anything at this point, or D. You will need to understand every area of patrol because you may end up as a D if you're the first one in the zone, right? Again, this is later on. But right now we want you understanding these are the areas to patrol. These are the responsibilities in this area. And we tell them you have to learn everyone else's responsibility, not just so you know it, because you never know, A, when you're going to end up in that area. B, you also have to understand how you will respond to certain situations should the puck move around the ice, right? Wow. So again, this is the foundational point. This is the basic. And I think the basic point here, Mike, is actually the way the game was played 20, 30 years ago. And that's where a lot of, I think, parents and we'll say older school coaches get lost, right? This is now the foundation of understanding. And again, when you move into the offensive zone, whatever your forecheck is, look, it's very possible in today's game, a defenseman is going to be the first person into the zone if they're carrying the puck. Now you are 0-1, you're forward 1, right? So someone has to understand the position and the areas of that system. And I think where a lot of kids get killed, and again, use whatever system you want, coaches listening, or parents, just any system you want. It's you only know your responsibility as F2. It's a mistake. You got to know what everyone on that ice is doing all the time. And the really good players with the high IQ know their position. They know everybody else's position. They can seamlessly transition to everybody else's position. And more importantly, they know how the positions need to interact to create great offense. That's positionless hockey to me, right? Is understanding the chess match. You know what every piece can do. Again, last metaphor here. It would be like playing chess and you only know what the knight can do. You don't know what the queen can do. You don't know what the rook can do. You only know what one piece can do. So you're waiting for that piece to go, forward and sideways, but you have no idea that every other piece moves differently. You couldn't play chess like that, right? You have to know all of the positions, all of the pieces. So that to me is positionless. I'm not saying that word well today. Hockey.
Right. And in a 5-on-5 game in the sport of hockey, it can't be 4 people knowing what positionless hockey is and 1 not.
Yeah, got a problem there.
It doesn't work. You can't say, well, all of us are going to play positionless except the lefty. The lefty is always going to play lefty.
Right.
Okay, well, then it doesn't work. And I think that's where, honestly, coaches really struggle at the youth hockey level, all the way up to 18U, in the manufacturing teams, and they think that every line of kids has to play the same way. I think when you get older, now you start talking about, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, that's where you could create a line of players that understand those concepts, and then the next wave of players that come out maybe don't play that way.
Right.
It doesn't mean that everyone has to play that way on your team. As you get to a higher level, teams have to start defining what certain players do, even what certain lines do, like even what certain units of 5 do. That right. if you have a group of 5 that can just wheel and deal and cut and play and move and slice and get in where they want on the ice, then I would use them differently than your other team, that maybe your other group of kids that maybe doesn't have the same IQ or skill sets, that maybe has to dump the puck in more. I mean, there are, this is where you get the coach, right? This is where you learn.
This is where bench management comes in.
This is where you learn that all 18 players, or how many you have, it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter sending the kids on the ice. At 9, yeah, it's a little more cookie cutter. But at 16, 17, 18, you can't just roll lines out there and say, this is the system we're playing. Yeah, but these 6 kids don't know how to play that system because they don't have the skill set. Well, I'm going to make them get the skill set. Well, how? You can't just force them to understand it. You have to teach that. It's a lot of work to teach. So I think that's when you start seeing real successful teams are the ones that can put together lines and waves of players that understand how to play with each other. And that's what the beauty about coaching is. If the kids that are listening to this episode, if you have coaches that assign you a role, it might not be because that's all they think you can do, but they might think that's how you work well with the other 4 players that they have you out there with.
Right.
That's a badge of honor. I would take that 100% and say, this is the way you want me to play. This is the group that we're playing this way. 100%. I'm all in.
Yeah,
I'm buying into the system.
Mike, you make a great point. Having a role is value. All right. And you want to have value to your coaching staff, especially when you're older. Again, Mike makes a good point. I think under we'll say under 10 for sure, but under 12, everyone should be playing. All right. You should all be skating. You should all be figuring it out. But when you get over that 12, roles come in, different lines. I mean, like I've been part of a grinder line. My job was to go out there and destroy that offense and make them get tired, right? Without obviously giving them a chance to score. Yeah. All right. I embraced that role that season. There was other seasons I was the goal scorer. Right. You have to understand the role. And Mike, you said it, you want to get really complicated just for the future. There's lines of 5 that play well with each other. There's also times like going back to defensemen, a D has to know which offensive group is out there and they might have to adjust their play based on that. Right. We talked about the D to D regroup up the ice. Can't do that with every offensive line. Right.
Oh, so, do you know how many times I've whispered into the next D going up saying, okay, do you see the group you're going out with? You can't do this. Like
get ready for some defense.
Understand. Again, that's not a knock on the kids.
It's an understanding.
It's just guys, I'm putting you out here. This is your role this next 50 seconds because this is the group you're going out with. Maybe it's in a game where I got to listen. Like I'm not a sitting kids on the bench guy. I want everybody to play.
I agree.
You also have to understand that you can't just put your 5 worst players on the ice together. Like you can't just say, hey, because I want everybody to play, I'm throwing.
This is bench management. This is bench management 101.
So I might take those 2 really, really good defensemen that I know can control the play and say, listen, when you go out here with this group, you're playing a different way. Just get through the shift. You're going to get your opportunity to be fancy and spinoramas and put the puck off and spin around the guy on the back end. That's not this shift. And you need to communicate that. And I think if you're a player, going back to the underappreciated defenseman, sometimes like that player is not flashy. You just know you're putting that player out there.
Yeah.
A, you're going to get a puck off the glass. B, they're going to possess the puck. They're going to eat pucks. Like the pucks aren't getting through them. Yeah. And that doesn't show up. I've never seen a player of the week. I haven't. I haven't seen a player of the week that wasn't based off of points. I've never.
Yeah, that's super fair, Mike.
Like I haven't seen so-and-so player of the week. They didn't score any points. They were a +7.
Yeah. 12
no
takeaways.
Penalties. 16 pucks in 2 games.
Yeah.
They were our good friend Mike Weaver. We used to joke around that in the NHL, if they would have a 4th assist, he would have led the NHL.
Yeah.
Because pucks got out of the zone.
Yeah, but great teams notice that.
Pucks got to professionals notice that.
Yes.
Pucks got out of the zone to 3 players that could move the puck, or 2 players, or even 1, but you never the assist doesn't go to the guy who eats a puck at the top of the circle in the defensive zone, chips it off the glass, puts it to 100 feet of open ice for an offensive player to go get it. You don't get points for that. And that is where that's from my point of view, working with a lot of defensemen that don't get that credit. It's because it is underappreciated.
Extremely.
It gets lost in the shuffle of points and production because you're getting the job done.
Right. And again, it's funny how it goes from that. Goaltenders are underappreciated too. Well, they didn't get player of the week. Well, they didn't get a shutout. Guy made 40 saves. It's like,
and he made 6 of them with a minute left in the game.
Right.
And your offense decided they weren't going to show up and play D.
Yeah.
So, but again, so that's what I'm speaking more from the side of view of, when you watch a hockey game on TV, the in the frame is all you see.
Right.
You don't see all the stuff outside the frame. So the fact that once this all the play happened and then everybody the ESPN highlights don't start with the block shot. It starts with the behind the back pass to the back door goal.
Right, you're 100% right.
And this is where when coaches watch, and it is hard because I don't have the points. A good recruiter, a good coach, somebody that's just picking a team does notice that. Right. They do. And the way you get noticed is, one of my points was keep it simple is more desirable than being flashy. It just 100%. Is. When you get right down to the game of hockey, the player in the defensive zone that's simple, that sees a lane, that moves a puck, that finds an angle. The risk reward to me as a coach is like, I feel very confident that the player is getting the puck on their stick.
Yeah.
Not, oh my God, the player's got the puck on their stick.
Well, Mike, you're making a huge point here. For the parents listening, this is so important for you to understand. As a coach, speaking for both Mike and I, the comfort, and that is the word, the comfort in knowing a D is going to keep it simple and get it out, and they are reliable, and you can trust them. Trust is the key word here. I will take 10 of those over the forward that is -1 with 3 goals, meaning they've scored 3 goals, but they had 4 goals scored against. It is very little value to me as a coach if you're not playing D as a forward. All right. And again, we all know that kid that they can deke and they can shoot, and it's really wizardry on the ice to get to the puck to the net. But man, if you score 3 and give up 4, that's not good for me as a coach. It doesn't work.
You know how many players of the game I've seen that have scored 3 goals and been a -1 and gotten player of the game?
Yeah, I'm like, disgusting. Why? Yeah,
I said, why?
Yeah.
I
don't do it. Yeah,
the player, because that's all people see. They don't see, they don't expect the right winger that scored 3 goals to not be on the ice for 3 against.
Right.
So you're a wash for me, buddy.
You're worse than a wash. You gave up a goal.
Right. So you're really not helping me. Yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, and then then you could get to the nitty gritty. Like, well, the player gets more ice time than anybody else, blah, blah. But the fact is, your best player can't be your worst player.
Well, I gotta say this too, just real quick, and I want you to continue that it's also on the coach to stop that from happening. You have to coach to that, right? If that player can't understand both sides of the ice, now it's on me to make sure that they learn that throughout the season. I do want to say that. So it's unless
like you said at the beginning, unless you don't mind being in 10-9 games. If you want to be in a 10, listen, if you want to be in a 10-9 game and live and die by that offensive player that doesn't play defense,
yeah.
I mean, it's almost like the blue line for some players is like kryptonite.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. I don't go in that zone over there. Your job is to chip the puck out to me.
How about this, Mike? Mike, I got one for you for the parents listening. We're at a tryout, okay? Or an eval, and we see a kid. This is gonna be funny to say. We see a kid just with tremendous offensive potential. We'll just say it like that. But there's no defense, and you see a defenseman that is just solid, unbelievably solid, great wheels, understands the play. I'm probably picking the D over that forward. All right, if I had to pick one, right? Now, hopefully you can pick both of them. But if I had to choose, I'm choosing that D. All right. If I have both of them, that's obviously the best case scenario. But parents, you got to understand that, because I hear parents go score. Like, whoa. Yeah. I mean, I want the kid to score, but you got to see it from both sides of the ice. It's the music starts in the back end. Mike, that brings me just to another point. Did you have something else on that? I didn't want to. I kind of cut you off there.
No, you cut me. No, because I think we're speaking the same language here. I mean, I think you have to take it from a point of view of an evaluator, a coach, somebody building a team. Probably looks at those differently than somebody that's just looking for the flash in the pan.
Yeah, that's us, Mike. We're the evaluators.
And I think, but when you're a player and you take care of business, I know you probably don't think people notice. And you know what? And frankly,
no, we do.
A lot of people probably don't notice. But when it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, like I joke around a lot with the players I work with too, is that at some point somebody's got to be a defenseman. We can't have I did an evaluation. I'll never forget this. So a player is 16 years old, New York State camp. And on my notes, I wrote down that he was our best back-checking defenseman. And I said, if you're the best back-checking defenseman on the team, you ain't playing D. I said, I don't understand what you're doing. Why are you owing that? And
Yeah.
because at some point you do have to play D. I don't care if you're in positionless hockey. I don't care if you're in the open flow of 5-on-5 and everybody just does what they want to do and the coverage is there. 100%. I think it is fun. It's great if you're in the stands and you're not a fan of anybody and you get to watch kids wheeling and flying through the zones and sealing gaps, and that's all great. But if you're a coach building a team from the back out, and we all need goal scorers. You probably pick that unbelievable goal
You
scorer.
need offense. That's what I would say. You need
You
offense.
need offense. And
Right?
a lot of coaches don't want to build a team to manufacture offense. They want a team built to get a kid that just scores 7 goals a game. And I'll play 5-on-4 in the zone. I get it. But when you're doing that in the defensive zone, you still need defensive help, and you need the desirable player that's simple, that's strong, that is stable, and puts them in a great situation for you to say, okay, minute left in the game, put that kid out there. We're going to be safe.
Yeah. That's comfort. That's the comfort I was talking about.
And there's a huge market for those players at the end of the day.
Yeah, and look, we should also mention that that's not just defense, right? That's the show's about defensemen, but defensive play where you can put someone out there, understand that they're going to be able to be out there and be safe from a center position too, who's a very defensive player usually in the defensive zone. This is
Think about this scenario, okay? Think about this scenario. You're in the car right now, right? You're driving to the ring, and you're listening to this. Think about this scenario. You're the best offensive 3 players on the ice. There's a minute left in the game. And a face-off in the offensive zone. Say you're winning by 2. Let's just make believe you're winning by 2 goals. If I'm a coach, should I put you out on the ice knowing that all you think about is the offense? All you think about is offense. Like, I know you'll never retreat. I know you'll never cover the middle of the ice. I know you'll never get in the position when there's a turnover, you're going to get baited and you're going after that puck. I'm probably not putting you on the ice. But those are the 3 best offensive players we have in the offensive zone. Okay, well, I don't need a goal right now. I'm up by 2.
Right.
So I'm not going to put you out there in that situation. I'm putting out, and parents are going to cringe like, oh my God, I can't believe they put this kid out there. You know what I know about that kid? I know he's going to get to the middle of the ice. He's going to get the puck on his stick, and he's going to put the puck deep. Yeah. And he's going to put the puck in a safe place. He's not going to try to do a dangle at the red line and beat a guy to get the 3rd goal that we don't need. He's not going to be on the ice for a breakaway. And now it's 2-1. And now there's 20 seconds left in the game, and all the pressure's on us. So this is where coaching, strategy, understanding your personnel, but offense and defensemen, defensemen, offensive women, defensive women. Being a good defensive player is very, very desirable, and especially in situations at the end of periods, at the end of games, after big goals are scored for you, not being on the side of, only thinking about going one way.
I want to dive into that word desirable because thinking about evals and tryouts, when we're recording this in January, they're not so far away, right?
I think I saw a couple listed today. So
yeah, it's like they're coming up. Parents, I got to talk to the parents a little bit. I'm going to be somewhat critical. First off, desirable. You want your kid to be desirable. If your kid can play D or defensive positioning, to me, you're automatically desirable. And I would actually question any coach that wouldn't pick that kid because of that, right? If your kid's doing that at an eval and not getting picked, that would be weird to me. And I actually don't think that that's super likely to happen because I think coaches look for that. But parents, speaking to the younger age levels, what can you do to help assist your kids in this journey? Which is really the whole point of our podcast here. And I'm going to say it kind of almost poignantly here. Stop telling your kid and stop telling the coaches what position your kid is. You are not helping your kid by convincing them that they're a center and telling the coach that they're a center. First line center. Coach, make them a center. Man, you are being a detriment. At the younger ages, I'm talking, okay? I'm talking like Mite, Squirt, and even Pee Wee. Yeah. Your kid needs to learn every position. I'm not saying they need to be at a different position every game. Sure, there should be a little bit of consistency when you're learning the positions. But do not get in the car and tell your kid, man, if you were at wing today, we would have succeeded. You're hurting your kid. You're not hurting us. You're hurting your kid. Because now that kid believes, well, I'm a right wing. There's nothing worse for me than when I'm asking a kid to play D and they go, I'm not a defenseman. Well,
Yeah.
you better be a defenseman if you're playing hockey. You better understand defensive hockey. All right? I'll tell you right now. How about this, Mike? If we're putting weight on this, it is more valuable to a coach for you to understand the defensive side of the game as in terms of all players than all players understand the offensive side of the game. All right? Because to be fair, as much as I want offense from my D, I don't necessarily need them going all the way down the ice. I need them being the base player back at the blue line. All right? And understanding how to do everything we talked about in this episode. Stop telling your kid that they're a certain position. Encourage your kid adversely to try all positions. If your coach puts you at D and you think you're a center, I can tell you, I can understand why that would be frustrating. I'm not negating that. But parents, you got to tell your kid to embrace that. All right? Again, stories here. I love telling stories. All right? Something I have been getting on my team about, and Mike, we've talked about this in other episodes. I actually got intense is the right word with my team the other day because I was so tired, keeping on these are 10-year-olds, of these forwards going right at the D with their puck in front of them, trying to deke around the D, which works 1 out of every 15 times. All right, the other 14 times the D gets it. And I got real intense with them of this makes no sense what you are doing. You are watching highlights of some of the greatest players in the world who, by the way, don't do that often. Try and deke through a guy when if you just cut left or cut right, get a quick shot, you will get a rebound and score, which, by the way, to me is not boring. I don't know when that became boring. Shots are not boring.
All right.
I put those offense on D and say, defenseman, skate right at him. Isn't that easy to do? It blows my mind. All right? You're helping the D by doing that. You're actually giving them reps. Now think about it. All right? Parents, you got to let them explore every position when they're younger. All right? And again, listen, I will admit this. I was not proficient at D in terms of being a defenseman until I got older and I understood the game a little bit more and I had that patience. I wanted to score goals. I wanted to create offense. I was hungry to score. I was an offenseman. Okay? That's part of my personality at that time when I was playing. Okay? And as I got older, I think that was pretty understood. But I also understood I had to get back and understand the defensive positioning. All right? Not everyone is going to be a D. And that's okay. But you got to understand all the positions. So stop telling your kid that they're the position that they think that they are. And encourage them to try other positions and encourage them when their coach puts them at a different position. Well, you should learn that position. Well, I want to be this. I understand you want to be that other position. Learn this position because coming full circle here, Mike, if you don't know what the other 4 players on the ice are doing, you have a major problem and you are not going to get picked for the team you want to get picked for. Guaranteed. Okay? Even when you get older and you have roles, playmaker, scorer, defensive defenseman, offense, even when those roles come in, you still need to know what the other players on the ice are doing or you're not making that team. Or worse, you'll become a detriment to that team, which I've seen.
Right.
All right? You got to understand that from a young age. Again, I'm getting intense now. I'm sorry. But like that to me is so important. I can't stand it when kids get upset when I ask them to play D. Right? They should, again, I'm not saying you should be jumping for joy or anything like that. But first off, I mean, the team needs you to do this, right? That's kind of number one. Number two is that you got to embrace it. And then last thing, Mike, just for the parents, kids, ask questions. Parents, encourage your kids to ask questions. One of the standing rules on one of my teams is I want you to bring 3 questions to practice, right? I want you to ask questions. I want you to learn. Don't stay quiet, right? And just because you're asking questions about D doesn't mean I'm going to keep you on D. I want you to know. So those are some tactics intensely explained by Lee Elias about positions. But keeping it back to the underappreciated D, all right, we have one more point we want to talk about, which again, just closing that point. Simple is more desirable than complex. All right. And that's the point that Mike and I think are trying to make here. Understanding those things. Mike, any closing thoughts on that before we go to the kind of next topic? That's the last topic.
That doesn't mean you can't try things. It doesn't mean that you have to be stifled by not being creative.
Yeah.
It means just like
No
I'm watching
shackles on. Yeah.
like I'm watching games where you easily could score a goal, not easily, but you're in a great position to move the puck or pass the puck in the offensive zone, and you're just trying the Michigan. And I'm not against the Michigan. I think it's awesome. I really do.
Yeah.
I think
There's a
it's
time
great.
and a place for it.
But it's like, okay, is that your go-to play when there's 17 other plays ahead of that you could make? Same thing in the defensive zone. Yes, I love the fact that you could pull up, pivot, and do a spinorama and get out of zone. Great, but just understand when where that is and when it is, and just try to be conscious of the fact that you have certain roles to play. I think getting back to your point about players thinking they're just defensemen or offensive players, that we are in a world that you should, not that you have to play D, but understanding that could actually be an advantage to your best winger.
Yeah.
Like to me, I don't. Sometimes I coach, right? So and I look at it as I still don't understand, like on face-offs, where every time there's a face-off in the neutral zone, there's 2 wingers and 2 D on the face-off. Like, I don't personally understand that. Like, there's no, like, to me, it's like, well, why wouldn't you put the like in the center ice? Why wouldn't you put like that D and the winger behind the D, so that D can create offense and get out of the zone? Like, all you're doing is just slapping pucks back and forth.
Right. And I just adding on to that too, just for the point I made, I think it's also important to understand, I'm not saying that in the middle of a random game you should put a winger on D or things like that, right?
No, you got to create this. This is
this is through practice and like I want to make sure I didn't say that, and I don't want parents thinking I'm saying when the coach says you go to D, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is experience based at practice. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make that caveat, Mike.
You're building that. When you have the rapport with your players and you're building a system of positionless hockey and be able to play in all these different positions, then yes, you have to. That's very important.
Yes,
no doubt. That you have to create that atmosphere ahead of time. You can't just in the middle of a second period go, what, we're going to start doing positionless hockey, because I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can do it.
You can do it.
It's not going to be a favorable outcome. Like the last point today is, and we kind of teased this earlier, is just all about the house and the underappreciated defenseman. So again, for those of you understanding or listening that don't know, the house is really between the dots in front of your own net. Kind of from the top of the circles down, we'll make it easy. There's a box there, right? We call that the house. In every league at every age, majority of goals are scored in that area. All right, from the NHL down, high percentage. You get a shot in that area, it has the best chance of going in the net. So great defensemen and underappreciated defensemen will defend that area, and most of the time, the best defensemen, the puck won't even get into that area if they're doing it right. Adversely, great offenses will find a way to penetrate that area and get shots. All right, that's the constant battle in the NHL. We had that great episode of Our Kids Play Goalie with Steve Alacchetti. He talked about the Royal Road. You should go watch that. If you don't know what the Royal Road is, go listen or watch the episode with Steve Alacchetti. It will change how your kids play. All right, but great defensemen, underappreciated defensemen, will keep the puck out of that area. And we talked about this earlier, where I don't necessarily want a D that's going to allow players in there. Great D will, and I say it like this, they will guide the opposing team's offense outside of that area, right? And this is where D get lost, right? They younger D poke or move, and a great offensive player is going to let you do that so they can get in there, right? I don't know if there's a stat for D that guide offense away from that area in youth hockey, at least. I know in the NHL they take everything, but man, is that an underappreciated area? At both ends.
Your ability to dictate where the player goes is much more desirable to me than your ability to recover after the player goes somewhere they wanted to go in the first place. Like, so when you watch a drill, when you watch all of us do drills, right? And all the drills are the winger flies around the zone, gets a puck, comes down, the defense is in the middle of the ice, and the winger drives to the outside. Most coaches are like, that's a great thing. You got to drive. I'm like, yeah, well, that's I love that. Every defenseman wants you to go out.
They all want you to do that.
Like, that's what you do. Thank you for helping me. Like,
Yeah.
why would I want to try to chase you when you cut back against me, right? So I think when you watch players, and like when I watch evaluations of players at the 14, 15, 16-year-old level, I want to see a player that's going to get into that house. I
Yeah.
want to see a player that's going to be an aggressive offensive player to make that D. If that D wants to keep backing off, then I'm going to create a space where I have to make that defenseman pivot. If I'm just going to skate down the boards and allow that D to follow me to the corner and then seal me off like that, okay, that's a desirable D to me. Like if that D can now dictate where their stick is, where the lane's allowed to be. You know, you don't have to be a great skater to play great defense. You just need to be a great positional defensive person, and with a great, I call it, like when you hear me talking to my kids, like great stick. That's great stick. That's what the sport allows you to use this stick. Use the stick to your advantage by putting it in places where you don't want somebody going, and that is the house.
Yeah, and I actually want to expand the calculus of this a little bit, Mike, for the highest level of like maybe looking into the mind of a top level defenseman. So let's say a forward is coming in and they're right-handed. We talked about this earlier. The D is thinking about a lot of things. Of one, I want to get this person on their backhand. So they're going to use their stick and their body to guide them again to the right side of the ice for the defenseman, because that's going to put them on their backhand. That D will also be thinking about where is their defensive partner. They'll be thinking about, is the other winger left-handed or right-handed? Am I creating a place to take away that passing? And they're probably, if they're really good, thinking a few steps ahead of, I'm going to put them in the boards and get it to my right-handed winger. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this thought process. Again, built up at practice. A lot of them come automatically at a game. All right. That the D is thinking about, of if I make them go this direction, this is what happens. If I make them go that direction, this is what happens. Or a D might go, this guy's going to force me to defend him on his forehand. How do I take away that shooting area? Now, also, just again, looking at this from adversely, just to kind of support our point, if you watch high level hockey now, and this is the difference between high level and younger hockey. Younger hockey, kid comes in, goes wide, just has to take the shot, just has to shoot that puck, right? Because that's the goal of the game, is to shoot the puck. When you look at a high level game, usually the F1 comes in and you start seeing that puck move quickly around the perimeter because they're trying to create time and space as an offense, right? Again, we won't get into how to defend that right now because that's a five person job. But my point to you is that like, this is where it starts. Like, offense reacting to defense is moving that puck around the perimeter of the offensive zone to create time and space, right? Great D don't allow that to happen. All right. And again, you said it right. When an offenseman comes in and goes wide, especially at the younger ages, because they probably don't know where to go from there, that's what the D wants. But I'll tell you this too, Mike. One-on-one, if you come straight at the D with the puck in front of you, the D wants that too, because it's easy to defend. All right. You know what I mean? It's easy to defend.
This is where we start getting really like thinking about the pace and gapping and space.
Yes. Long gap, short gap.
Because what happens is as you climb the ladders of hockey, 12, 13, 14, AAA, real hockey, you allowing that player to go to the outside is not the end of the game.
Yeah.
It's now, because everybody's expecting that player to wheel around the net. How many goals are we seeing go short side, the goalie in the reverse VH cheating a little bit, and that puck's going off their head and into the, off the ice. It's your ability. Like I call it, like if you're a good defenseman, if you're an elite defenseman, a boring defenseman, you are not allowing a shot from the top of the circle down to past the goal line. You just don't allow a shot. Now, how do you not allow that shot? You've got to have tight gap.
Yep.
You've got to be in great position. You got to have a good stick, but you also can't respect that forward so much that you're allowing them the stick length space of getting a shot off. If they're able to get a shot off, you did not defend.
Right.
Earlier in your life, when you were 12 years old and 10 years old, and a player shoots the puck at the top of the circle on net, you did a pretty good job. You did your job. Goalie should stop that puck. But when you start getting above 14, 15 years old, and you allow that player to get a shot off anywhere in the offensive zone, you are now no longer doing your job. You're just not. And while the goalie has to do something, the goalie has their job to do. Your job is to not allow that shot to get taken, because shooting creates chaos.
Yep.
Chaos in the house creates goals. And that's what that underappreciated defenseman needs to understand. I don't need you to do anything fancy. I just need you to gap up, stick down, seal that player off, put them in a place where they can't shoot, And then more importantly, to your point about the better levels, wait for that wave of players to come in and then wait for your help. And I don't think enough defensemen understand that all I got to do is slow this guy down a little bit.
That's it.
I don't need to play him one-on-one. I just need to play. I want to play him 3-on-1. The only way I can do that is to slow him to a place where I can get my teammates to come help me.
Yeah, and I think, Mike, just closing this out, we all hear the time and space. Got to create time and space. Got to create time and space. But I think everyone thinks about that offensively. I've created time and space to take a shot.
Yeah.
You think about it defensively too. You create time and space so that the defense can rejoin you in the zone, right? So again, pushing an offensive person outside the dots to allow time for the rest of the players to come back in the zone, that's a smart play. And you're right, we don't see that enough. Everyone is so craving, these players listening, we're craving these one-on-one highlight reel maneuvers, and they rarely work. It's actually akin to the Michigan. There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
All right, but it's rare. Right? And again, my best offensive forwards, one-on-one with the D, are not winning that. The best case scenario is half the time. Best case scenario. I don't think I've ever seen it above that. All right, because the D can guide you, right? It's kind of in the defense. Remember, the defenseman has a goalie behind them. They actually have the advantage, right? Doesn't matter how good you are. And again, that's assuming the talent level is comparable. I should say that too, right? If you put a 12-year-old against a 6-year-old, he's going to win every time, most likely. But yeah.
If you understand space as a defending player, if you understand that space and that pace and that time and the ability to clog up areas of the ice where you don't want somebody to go, just taking your ice, like you take the ice first, not chase. Like if you're a read and react defenseman, you're probably not lasting very long.
No,
it's not read and reacting. It's controlling and dictating. What players do is what makes you a great defenseman, and that is so hard to see for mom and dad in the stands. I get it. I mean, I understand that you're not. You have 4 points on the year, but you had 170 takeaways.
Right.
Like that to me is. I mean, basketball does a good job with that. Creating that stat defensively. But hockey maybe needs to do a better job of appreciating the fact that you're eliminating offense and moving the puck to a place where somebody could actually create offense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sports. I think about football, right? When the offense wins the game, the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver won the game. But when the defense stops the drive, it's the offense screwed up. You're saying about the defense.
They couldn't do a good job. Well, there is actually another team out there.
Yeah, there's an amazing defense out there. All right, so look, just to close this up, parents have a massive appreciation for the defensive side of the game, no matter what position your kid plays. I'm saying that in an encouraging way, like embrace that. Coaches, we actually have to develop these defensemen as well, right? We have to coach to the points that we're talking about and beyond on this episode. If you're not coaching the defense up, it's on us, right? And then to the player, embrace it all. Understand becoming a two-way player or understanding how to play defense in general is vital, not just to success for your team, but for you to get picked for a team. All right. Coaches are looking for this. I think it'd be tough to find a coach that doesn't understand the value of great defense. Okay. And I was a forward and I'm saying this. All right. In fact, I coach defense most of the time now because I see the game from an offensive point of view. So I can tell the D, this is what this guy or the girl is going to try and do. Right. There's value with that. Same thing reverse with an offenseman. Offensive coach. Mike, great episode. The underappreciated defenseman. I loved every second of this, buddy. I always like doing these episodes.
I hated playing D too. So I mean, I was like, now in adult league, I'll play D every day.
Yeah, it's because we're slow and old. It makes it's a lot easier to play D.
You're smarter. I'm watching players come down, they're dangling and moving pucks between their legs and
chopping wood
skin off. And I'm like, okay, well, where are you going to go? Like the sport allows you to be successful because the only place you can score is the net. Like there's no other ways to score. So the game allows you to be a better defenseman if you just play simple, smart, offensive hockey, thinking all I have to do is stop the puck and move it to a place where my guy to take it,
right,
or for me to take it. But again, I think it's just something to really look out for. If you're a coach listening to the episode, give those defensemen more pats on the back If you're a
Let them
parent
know.
that has that, if you have a parent that has a defenseman that doesn't have a point all year, accentuate the great plays, accentuate the great D,
Yeah.
accentuate the good chips,
Well, and
and
pick stats that you can accentuate, right? Well, you had 5 takeaways in that game. Like look at those stats.
right. How
Right?
many bruises do you have on your thigh?
Yeah.
That's a good stat. I want to see that.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
times have you eaten a puck? I want to see
I'm
that stat.
serious though, right? Like you got to
Right.
change what points are, right? Like, yeah, points are sexy, but like, hey, how many takeaways did you have? How many offensive situations did you stop tonight? How many great first passes did you have? If I'm a parent of a defenseman, these are the things I'm watching. Points are bonus for D, in my opinion, right? They're bonus. Okay. Coaches, same thing. Like, and again, we track this in some of the locker rooms of takeaways and first passes. I've made charts for D in pro locker rooms where we track that, and guess what? The D love it because now they are being appreciated. All right, and the offense appreciates it too. You start seeing the game differently. So those are some of the tactics you can do. Again, great episode. A lot of info in this one. I want to thank you all for listening to the underappreciated defenseman. Hopefully, going to make them the appreciated defenseman.
All right, let's appreciate those D.
Let's appreciate the D. That's going to do it for this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. For Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. Remember, you can message us questions, comments, anything you want. There's a link accompanying the description for this episode. Click that. You can text us or you can email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. With that said, appreciate your D. We'll see you in the next episode, everybody. Have a great day. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.